Shalom everybody. I recently did a community Q&A asking the community what type of videos they would like to see, and quite a few responses were given, and it seems an abundance of them were on guided meditations and ascension-like practices. Therefore, in this video, I would like to discuss secrets of the second school of Kabbalah, Ma'aseh Merkavot. So with that being said, let us begin. In Likutei Yeda, in the portion discussing the forms, beginning at pages 52 and onwards, we are shown images of the 7 forms which personify the world of Yetzirah. It is explained the spirit form, desire form, the higher self, the soul form, emotion form, mental form, and physical form, etc. Now, inside of this sefer, it does not explain how to navigate these things. So we will begin with the first key. It needs to be understood that the physical form refers to the physical body. Thus, we find directly above it is Yisod, an example, the mental form. We find that the color of the mental form is black. And so, when we enter into the mind, close our eyes, we see blackness. Furthermore, upon retaining that blackness, we find that we begin to see colors. Now, these 6 forms collectively are called Zerainpin, also the world of Yetzirah, which is called Rakiot or Rachia, which means firmament. Our first key is an understanding that in order to enter into this sphere of Yisod, we must first collapse the guf, an example, the body. We see this occurring at night, where the shefa or flow of the spheros of the body must be collapsed in order to ascend into Yisod, the mental form. For as long as the spheros remain in its linear construct and its pathways remain connected, the consciousness is in the material world. But once you collapse the flow of the physical body, an example by laying down, etc., or other such practices, the consciousness then shifts into the mental form, which is the sphere of Yisod. We will thus find that before going to sleep, when we close our eyes and collapse the body by laying down, we see blackness. And after seeing the blackness, we begin to see color and images. This is the transition into the Rakiot, for Yisod is the first sphera of Yetzirah, connected to Malchus, called firmament. And it is by this technique we enter into the firmament. Now, I will discuss 2 practices as to how this was achieved. In a very esoteric sefer called Even HaShochem, or the Book of the Onyx Stone, also called the Kabbalah of the Prophets, it states the following: lifted from a manuscript whose tradition goes back to Eliyahu HaNavi, an example, Elijah the prophet. It discusses the techniques that were used in order to ascend into the upper worlds. We can see here the upright position. This is the flow or shefa of the spheros, as the consciousness is inside of Malchus, an example of the guf or physical body. We then begin to see the collapsing of the flow of the spheros in such a way that we find that the knees are collapsed. An example, the flow of the legs are collapsed, that the arms are behind the back outside of the natural order, and the torso is turned inward and the face is downward. All of this is to restrict the flow or to cease the flow of the spheros interaction inside of the guf and inside of the body. This loosens the consciousness, which allows the consciousness to ascend upward more easily. For as long as the body is in its linear flow, an example, the spheros are in clear interaction with each other inside of the physical body, then the consciousness is linked to the physical body. It is only upon the collapse of the flow of the physical body sphirot that the consciousness inside of it can begin to ascend upwards. Now, it explains warnings against doing this practice alone. It explains that this technique can even lead to death. One of the reasons as to why this would occur is because during this position, you would find that your limbs would inevitably begin to fall asleep. And if the limbs were to fall asleep completely, you would be stuck in this position, in which it states in some cases could even lead to death. So it is forbidden to partake of this technique. This technique was used by our prophets in order to ascend the higher Merkavot according to this text. Thus we see an example of collapsing the guf or collapsing the physical body to enter the higher firmaments. Now let us discuss a much higher technique. This technique is called the opening of the gates of righteousness. Now, Tzedek is a name that refers to the sphera of Yisod. This refers to the mental form, an example, the mind. Thus, the opening of the gate of the righteous alludes to the opening of the consciousness or the mind. In order to understand this, we have to understand a new principle behind the sphera of Malkut. And that is that Malkut is called Et. An example, Aleph Tav. This refers to the first and last letter of the Lashon HaKodesh. An example, the 22 letters, Aleph through Tav. In the Zohar, Volume 2, First Chamber, Yisod, we read, remember that the first chamber of Yisod also includes Malkut. Thus we receive our key, that Malkuth must be included inside of the chamber of Yisod. It was explained that Malkuth is called Et, an example, the 22 letters. Thus we find that the 22 letters must be included inside of Yisod, an example, the mental form. Thus, the 22 letters acts as a key to the gate of righteousness, in that the righteousness refers to the mind. Thus, the turning of the key is the contemplation of the 22 letters, by which the gate of righteousness is opened, and one may enter into much higher firmaments than those lower rakiot that we interact with simply when dreaming. This is achieved through the contemplative meditative techniques of the 22 letters in their proper positions. That is to say, the 3 mother letters, which are Aleph, Mem, and Shin, the 7 double letters, which are Beit, Gimel, Tav, Fe, Kaf, Resh, and Dalet, and the 12 elemental letters, Ain, Yud, Lamed, Samek, He, Chet, Nun, Vav, Kof, Tet, Tzadi, Zain. These elemental letters are called elemental letters for 2 reasons. The first is that they are 3 to each of the mother letters, whereas Mem comes to include Mem Sophit, representing the earth. This gives us the basic structure of the crown jewel of the Atik. Now, the technique that is involved in utilizing the turning of this key in which we are looking at involves the meditation of their interactions. For example, it is commonly well known on this channel that Aleph separates Mem from Shin. And it has been explained that Aleph alludes to the throat, Mem alludes to liquids and solids and the lips that make the same sound, such as and now Shin, alluding to the fire, makes the sound of the hissing of the tongue like this. Thus we have our basic understanding. And the first technique you would want to do is, upon laying down at night, one would meditate in their heart upon the Torah of Hashem, which comes to include the Lashon HaKodesh, or the 22 letters, by collapsing the guf, an example, by collapsing the physical body, laying down at night where the higher influences are much more active, and then placing the 22 letters, which is the key, into the gate of righteousness, that is to say, into the mind, the mental form. Then by contemplating the various connections, one would rotate or turn the key. For example, by visualizing the 22 letters in this exact formation, we would take the letter Beit, for example. Beit cannot be pronounced without a combination of the lips and the throat. It corresponds to letter B in English, and so we see ba. This sound cannot be made without the lips and the throat. Thus, we take it to a higher level. Base means house, and we can see it in words like bag, box, book, etc. The letter B in here infers that it houses something. But we take it to a much higher level and view them like hieroglyphics. Aleph is air, Beit is house, and Mem is water. And so we begin to ask the question, air, house, water. Does air house the water? And we see that it does. We see it in the clouds in the sky. Furthermore, we can see this in the letter B in the word breath. Breath denotes air, housing, water. We can see this in the Hebrew word for breath, hevel, which contains the letter Beit to denote the same. We can also see it in the word lev, meaning heart, in which the heart oxygenates liquids. In this meditative technique and practice, you would apply the various stages and interactions of the key by which would turn to unlock the door to the gate of righteousness. You would then take the reverse, water, house, air, and you would realize that the water does house the air, in example H2O, where the O is the component of oxygen. We would continue on, viewing words, an example like the letter B in the word bubble, which would denote this. And in reverse, like the letter B in the word breath, which is certainly air that houses water. Now you would continue to make your way through the various pathways of the key by which turning it through its various locking mechanisms, and ultimately would end up in the higher heavenly yeshivot. A complete guide to this technique is found on pages 318 and onwards in Likutei. A free PDF version of this Sefer is found at the beginning segments of the opening portion via a QR code. This text is also available on Amazon and bookbaby.com. Now, once a person has entered into the gate of righteousness, their dreams would not be chaotic like the lower rakiot, which seem to be chaotic. However, they would ascend into varying chambers of the heavenly yeshivot, where divine mysteries, divine wonders, and divine understandings would come to them, and they would find themselves in miraculous places, understanding and seeing miraculous things. This occurs by falling asleep in the meditative practice of uniting this key, an example Malkut, into the chamber or the gate of righteousness, an example Yesod. And this, in generalities, was alluded to in a very esoteric portion at the opening segment of Likutei, which I will share now. It opened on page 21. Lift up your eyes, an example the seven forms, and look to the heavens, who created all these. He who brings out the starry hosts one by one, and calls forth each of them by name, because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. Isaiah 40:26. For the eyes of the mind, an example this chamber that we discussed, are lifted up from their preoccupation with earthly things, and they're being filled with the impression of material things, and they are so exalted that they peer beyond the created order and arrive at the sheer contemplation of God, and at conversing with him reverently and suitably as he listens. How would things so great fail to profit those eyes that gaze at the glory of God with unveiled face, and that are being changed into his likeness from glory to glory, for then they partake of some divine and intelligible radiance. The word glory here, kavod, hints to the 22 letters in the 10 sfirot, which by contemplation, an example the techniques that were just shown, one may enter up. For these material things that one occupies themselves will pass away. Isaiah 51:6. Lift up your eyes to the heavens, and look on the earth beneath, for the heavens will vanish away like smoke, the earth will perish like a garment, and those who dwell in it will die in like manner. But my salvation will be forever, and my righteousness will not be abolished. The divine mystery of the chariot, Merkava. I will now explain the method of ascension. The root of the word Merkava is Rechav, which denotes to ride. However, this word also means grafting. Thus one grafts through a combination of letters, Partsufim and divine names, ascending from glory to glory into that place beyond all created order, until one finds themselves before the great darkness from which the glory of God is made known. It is written regarding this, Exodus 20:21, so the people stood afar off, but Moses drew near the thick darkness where God was. The people are the world and material things, and as one ascends the mountain glory by glory, they separate from that which is mundane and material, shedding mortality, and ascending through the mystery of all created orders, and descending past these things, until the arrival of that great darkness, the secret of secrets, from which the glory of God is made known. He made darkness his secret place. His canopy around him was dark waters and thick clouds of the skies. Psalms 18:11. Lift your eyes to heaven, beholding that which is of the created orders above. Look upon the earth beneath, beholding that which is the created orders below. Ascending with the divine chariot, beholding the eyes to the order of that which is above and that which is below, uniting and grafting these things together, as the divine chariot ascends from glory to glory. And from this grafting one causes the heaven and the earth to pass away. Through the unity of these two things, the illusion of separation vanishes like vapor, and the material, as the earth perishes as a garment, for the material and immaterial become no more. As one ascends from glory to glory, arriving at the divine union of his bridal chamber, by which the former things have passed away, and a new heaven and a new earth are formed, not from material and corruptible things, but incorruptible things. Isaiah 65:17. Grafting, arachava, one letter to another, one world to another, one divine name to another. Each combination from the Merkava combines the power of the divine names, the sfirot, and the letters. When these are grafted to an individual, they direct him, forming every possible permutation, because their essence is sealed within the permutations. Every key of wisdom is given over to the individual who gazes, sees, and understands. This entire portion here is hinting to this key. An example, every key of wisdom is given over to the one who gazes and sees the permutations of the letters, contemplating by connecting the key, in example Malkuth, et, with the mind, in example the mental form, or Yesod, in the blackness, approaching him through the darkness, like it was stated, climbing from glory to glory, that is, from one meditative contemplation to another meditative contemplation. It continues, when an individual looks into these permutations in a proper manner, he can see all of creation. This is likened to a person who looks into a glass mirror. He sees both his own face and the faces of all those who pass by. When the power of influx begins to manifest and reveal itself to one gazing into the mirror, the letters and sphirot begin to appear before him like lightning flashes. Regarding this, it is written, the Chayot ran and returned like a vision of lightning, Ezekiel 1:14. The Sefer Yetzirah states, 10 sphira of nothingness. Their vision, tzfaya, is like a flash of lightning. Like flashes of lightning, the letters, partsufim, worlds, and divine names flash before the eyes as one ascends from glory to glory. The living creatures are the forms which behold the glory of the light. Like a ladder that ascends upwards, a ladder of letters, a ladder of sphirot, a ladder of partsufim, and a ladder of worlds. And so, the first key, an example, the gate of righteousness and its opening, have been successfully explained. So with that being said, this will conclude our first video. If you would like to see more videos on this particular topic, or perhaps deeper mysteries regarding the process of Ascension Techniques and Ma'aseh Merkavot, leave a comment down below, and perhaps there will be a future video. With that being said, everyone, perhaps one day I will see you in the heavenly yeshivot. Shalom and Selah.